Good morning. Today is the 1st of March 2020 and I decided to read a little bit. I'm reading out of Lydia, which is a story about a reincarnation. It's a follow-on story from Bliss After Life, which I wrote between 2006 and 2017. And this Lydia is a young girl now, a baby still. She was born in March 2012. And we are here now in the house where they live, in the refuge. And this is chapter 67. And another baby is about to be born. Another reincarnation. Chapter 67. Melanie is going into labor. They had their first proper frost, and Melanie had got up before the crack of dawn. The last 3 weeks had felt a bit mad, even more than her life usually was. Since she had returned from viewing her flat, the days had just drifted into each other. She had read all of The Only Planet of Choice and spent a lot of time talking to Mia. The evening of the tarot reading at Lenie's had made the rounds, and Mia had explained much more to her, so much that she had not felt like talking to anybody, and was holding her vibes as high as she could. Milton had been very quiet. He was growing, was all she got when she tried to connect with him. She had become super sensitive as far as food was concerned, smells and people. Sometimes she wondered how Tony put up with her, but then he was much more down the coast at their flat now, and so was Pete. Melanie spent a lot of time on her own or with her other housemates. She missed her cat Pippa, who had been so happy when Melanie came to see her flat. Tony had sent her regular pictures, and Pippa was very at home at her downstairs neighbour's flat, but sometimes she wished she had taken her with her here. Anna was always around. She was now in her 7th month of pregnancy, and she had admitted to Melanie yesterday that she was quite glad that she had bought another fancy, cosy dressing gown, because that was her general attire when no one was visiting. Faye was busy with Lydia, who had developed an obsession with Melanie, or Milton, more to the point, and so they spent much time talking about their already funny babies, listened to music, knitted, and enjoyed the dark December days. Thank God I'm not alone with this, even though a little peace is needed this early morning, Melanie had been thinking, and had retreated to the inside-outside place, as the kitchen was going to be busy soon. It was 5 days to Christmas, and it seemed to Melanie the house was buzzing as soon as it got light. She needed stillness. Tony and Pete were due back this afternoon, and she couldn't wait to see her man. Anna felt the same about Pete, and she had heard the phone ringing faintly when she left the kitchen. Ludmilla, Anna's mum, kept a constant watch on her Anushka, and had a tendency to ring early. Melanie missed her mum. How she would have enjoyed all this fuss about babies. She had gone into the summer house without putting any lights on at first, had lit a few candles to lay down on the big settee, but not before she had pressed play on the CD, which she had put in the other day, and she knew that no one had been in the space here since. The heater was on full blast. She enjoyed the steady humming and the flow of warm air. She had brought a cosy blanket and laid down. She drifted off. After a while she felt movement. Hello. Hello, Mia, I'm exhausted and overwhelmed. She felt a wave of love. Mummy, this is Milton, I'm ready. Get ready for the ride. Melanie sat up. She had felt a contraction and a shock. Her feeling of calmness had disappeared. She had to get up. There was light on in the house, and she heaved herself off the settee, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. She felt okay again and switched the heater and CD off. She kept humming the tune in her head, hoping Faye was up. Coming into the kitchen, she heard Faye and Anna talking. Both looked like they'd come straight out of bed, and when Melanie came into the kitchen, they both stopped talking and then started to laugh. What? Melanie had to laugh herself, but had no idea why. She suddenly felt a sharp pain and doubled over. Faye and Anna rushed over to hold her. Melanie felt the pain subsiding and suddenly started to laugh hysterically. Her dressing gown, Bliss' colourful robe, had unfastened and her belly was bare. Also, her waters were breaking. She looked with shock to the floor. They heard crying upstairs and noises. "Oh my God, my water's broke." Melanie felt a little panicky. "Lydia heard us. Ben can look after her." This made Faye laugh. She could just imagine Ben tumbling out of bed. He slept very deeply and they could hear his under-breath cursing down the stairs. "Where are you?" She heard him and had to suppress a giggle. She answered a short sentence in Chinese, smiling at Anna. Melanie had composed herself. She wanted to be in her room, but that was all the way upstairs. She looked at Anna. "Can we go to your old annex? I love how it is a communal space now. I can't climb those stairs." They had already started walking through the utility room and Anna shouted to Ben that they were going to the annex. Melanie was about to give birth. "Do you need hot water and towels?" She could hear him faintly shouting downstairs, laughing at the same time. He thought he was so funny. Faye replied that towels was a very good idea and get on with it. The waters had broken and he could make himself busy and clear it up. He made her smile. He was such a lovely man, her Ben. She felt blessed. "Also, call Tony, please, if you want to be useful, Benny. I know he's due here today, but maybe Milton will beat him to it. Do not worry him, though." She heard Ben and Lydia laughing upstairs. Faye put the kettle on before following Melanie and Anna into the annex. Ben had been joking, but his heart was beating to his chest. He took Lydia on his arm and found his phone finally under the bed. He dialed Tony. It was light now and the clock showed 8:30. "You, what's up?" Tony answered after several rings. "You better get here ASAP, brother. I'm fetching the towels for the impending appearance of Milton." He didn't know why he was being so silly. "Pete, get your boots on. We're going now," he heard Tony shout. "Thanks, Ben. Do be sensible now and get on with the towels. We shall set off in the next 20 minutes. See you before midday." "Please let Pete drive, Tony." Ben suddenly felt that Tony might drive silly fast. "I should have never left it this late. No worries. We take Pete's car anyway. It's much faster, and yes, he will drive. See you soon. Look after my woman." Ben thought all seemed in hand. He decided to see if Evelyn was home, and putting Lydia into her cot, he got dressed and dialed. Evelyn answered on first ring and promised to be there soon. She had expected to hear something since Monday and had been ready to drive to the refuge. "I see you soon. Everybody stay calm, Ben. She will be fine." Ben was glad. He was dressed and he changed Lydia, talking to her the whole time. All was quiet downstairs. Lydia gave him one of her sunny grins and he suddenly felt everything will be fine. "Your little companion is on its way, my little peach." He blew a raspberry on her cheek and proceeded down the stairs. Remembering the towels, he went back into the bathroom and took the towels out the washing basket to wipe the floor. This was going to be some Friday. He looked at his phone. It was the 20th of December. Well, he thought, her due date was the 21st of December. Either this was going to be a long labour or Milton will appear a day early. He walked into the kitchen with Lydia and could hear faint noises from the annex. No reason to rush there, he thought, hoping Faye would come out. Lydia was hungry and so was he. He wiped the floor and, filling the kettle, he was whistling. And Lydia was fascinated by that. She pursed her lips, which made him laugh out loud. "Hello, Benny. Thanks for cleaning. This labour has definitely started." Faye came out of the room. "I phoned Evelyn, and she's coming. In fact, here she is." The loud doorbell never went unnoticed. "You go and make some tea, love. I open for Evelyn, and we shall go straight through." Faye rushed to the door to let their friend in. She had been instrumental at Lydia's birth, although they had proceeded to the hospital with that. He was not sure what Melanie's plans were. He knew they had been talking about birth over the last few weeks. With Anna in her last 9 weeks or so, he couldn't recall the plan. Maybe there was none, because Melanie never went to any clinic. "Hello, Ben. Have you got a sense of déjà vu?" He embraced Evelyn, who looked tanned and well. "Why are you so brown?" "Mark and I were in Tunisia for a long weekend. I needed some heat, and we just lazed around. It was glorious. although we hardly left the compound. I'm revising a book and Mark had so much stress at work we decided spontaneously to take a break. We've been back 3 days. I'm glad. She took her gloves and coat off, and her red top was a match to her woolly hat. You look like Father Christmas. Faye was laughing. Evelyn had a vibrant look to her. Yes, and we are going to deliver a present. I best go through. A foot massage never goes amiss, and I know Melanie knows that better than most. Faye took a jug of water and followed Evelyn. She turned to Ben, who was bopping Lydia up and down. Can you make tea? I come back and tell you if the others want one. I definitely do. I do not think it is that close to birth, and she's been in touch with Christina, who is her doula. She will come around midday. Until then, we are keeping watch and see how it goes. She winked at Ben and proceeded to the annex. He was glad no one had asked him to assist. Although he had been present at Lydia's birth, there he had been an involved onlooker. He would definitely feel in the way next door today. He was hoping Tony would be here soon. Filling the kettle some more, he looked for something he and Lydia could eat. She loved little bits of toast now and was drinking out of a beaker. They had got a playpen where he sat her down with one of her little books, and she happily opened it to look at the pictures. Your little friend is coming into the world. Now, what shall we have for breakfast? Some jam toast? He continued talking to Lydia whilst he sorted breakfast. Faye came out with the order for herbal tea and normal tea and orange juice, and he got busy. Chapter 67. Melanie and Milton. She had relaxed after her last contraction, and Anna had put some soothing music on. Melanie had drifted into a trance. She was feeling herself connect to her little baby boy who was making his way down her birth canal. His heart was beating fast and steady, and so was hers. Anna had found Christine the doula already, and she would be here soon. For Melanie it had been timely to meet Christina again, learning that she had trained to help babies into the world. They had met a couple of times during their reflexology course and literally bumped into each other at the coffee shop in October. Christine had finished her training. She had also stopped the reflexology course and loved her new work. She was older than Melanie and had a little boy who was 3 now, and they had agreed that they would help each other. Melanie had some insight for Christine. They had ended up sitting in the cafe for 2 hours until Christina had to pick up little Robert from kindergarten. She had moved into this area only recently and was delighted to meet Melanie. Evelyn came into the room and Melanie was glad to see her. Without much ado she had taken the duvet off and checked Melanie. A tiny opening. It was by now 10 and Christine would be here soon. She was glad of the help and laid back to let Evelyn take care of her feet. Anna took her left hand and Faye her right, and they felt it would be all right. Gently massaging her hands, they sat down by the bed, quietly talking with Melanie. The doorbell was chiming again, and Tony and Peter had arrived at the same time as Christine. Ben pointed Tony into the direction of the annex, and they disappeared. Peter was bringing their luggage out of the car. They embraced. So, it's full action then. Peter went back to bring in the rest. He took his coat off and followed Ben into the kitchen. Lydia was gurgling. Everybody had just straight walked past her. She sat with her little book on her knees, her eyes following Tony and Christine. She looked at Ben and lifted her arms. She obviously needed a better view. I pick her up. I need to practice. Peter bent down to pick up Lydia, who was giving him the biggest smile. She doesn't look panicked. She's in touch with Milton, who is making his way into the world. They looked at each other. You are kidding, right? Peter bopped Lydia up and down and looked at Ben. I think so. They burst out laughing, and Lydia joined them with a most glorious giggle. He must be all right then, otherwise she wouldn't be so happy. Tony came out of the annex. He was glad that he seemed to have arrived in good time. There were 4 women in the room with Melanie, and after a relieved kiss and pat on the hand, Melanie had laid back on the bed. He had just watched Evelyn massaging her feet and heard Christine and Anna chatting about JJ. No one had even noticed when he left. He smiled when he saw Lydia on Pete's arm, and Ben laughing uproariously. Lydia turned around and laughed at him. "Come, sit down, Tony, have a cup of tea. We never even had the chance to have breakfast." Peter pulled out a chair and Tony sat down with a sigh. "I'm really glad all seems okay. In fact, she looked positively relaxed. Didn't notice me leaving, though." All laughed and Ben told him their last remark. "Honestly, guys, nothing would surprise me. I had not met Christina. She seems nice, and I'm glad she is helping. I feel a little bit like my dad sometimes, always worrying. Although I was born at home too. Anyway, how are you, Ben? Lydia seems to have grown so much. Every time I see her, she's changed." "She's over 9 months old now. Eats toast and all. It's been a while that you saw her in action. What, Lydia? Tell Uncle Tony, what are you up to? Tony was marvelling at Lydia's progress. It was true. He had been quite wrapped up at the coast, and both he and Pete had not spent as much time with little Lydia than they had in the beginning of her life. He could hardly believe his own little boy was being born. He looked at the clock. He felt his stomach rumbling. He pretended to take a piece of toast from Lydia's plate. She grabbed it and reached it to him. Smiling, he took it. She was the most adorable little girl. "Thank you, Lydia. I shall have this little piece, and then we shall make another round of toast." Lydia clapped her hands and enjoyed everybody's laughter. All sat down. Much had happened in the last few weeks, and they looked at each other in amazement, the speed with which this year had passed. Chapter 68. Milton makes his appearance. The hours just seemed to flow into each other. The day and the evening had passed, and Melanie knew she was close to birth. Tony had been with her the last hour, and the contractions had been steady. The time had come, and Christine asked her to push. It became almost surreal, seeing Tony and Christine looking at her, all breathing deeply together. A last push, and Milton fell into his dad's hands, with Christina helping him along, finally out of the tunnel, into the outside, the light. They had dimmed the lights in the room a little, and after a check and a wipe, Evelyn put little Milton on Melanie's belly. She had asked for the cord not to be cut straight away, and all were watching little Milton discovering his family around him. Tucked into a soft blanket, his eyes were wide, and his first glance were at a room of tearful people. He closed his eyes after a yawn, and Melanie felt a wave of happiness wash over her. Tony leaned to say hello. "Milton, here you are." 0022 on the 21st of December. He looked at Christine, who nodded. A few minutes old, and all in one wonderful piece. They looked at each other. Time to get Ben and Pete. "And where is my cigar?" To the laughter of all around, Faye produced a long cigar out of her handbag. She had bought it a few weeks ago with Ben. It seemed to be an English tradition, and they spent more money than she had expected. Christine had called Ben and Pete in the room, who were clapping Tony's shoulder, and after admiring little Milton, all were asked to leave the room, except Tony and Christine. Melanie was waving from her bed. The afterbirth and the cord had to be taken care of. Chapter 69, 21st of December, the first day of Milton's life. It was a Friday, and the news of the arrival, Milton, son of Melanie and Tony, had travelled through the airways. Anna was cooking. They had left Melanie with Tony and little Milton to themselves after Christina and Evelyn had left. Both would pop over in the next few days and see Milton's progress. He had been exactly 7 pounds. Faye had so many baby growths from Lydia. Little Milton had looked happy and relaxed in yellow when Melanie had fed him. She was glad to lay back to sleep. Tony was sitting with little Milton, who was sleeping in his cot, and Faye felt so happy for them. The kitchen was as usual the hub of the house, and Ben was playing with Lydia on the floor. Everyone looked a little tired, and Anna was making soup so that everybody could eat whenever they felt like it, including Melanie, who would soon be hungry. She had left fresh rolls in the oven, and after turning the soup down, she was going upstairs to have a sleep. Her mum had already rung, and the news was travelling all around the world, as she had seen Faye texting her parents about the new arrival. they would be here for Lydia's first birthday in March and maybe for the birth of JJ. These days were crazy. Anna wiped her hands and, waving at Pete, she went upstairs. Pete was talking to Ben on the floor. They had dozed a few hours during the evening, and she left them chatting animatedly. Christmas was only 4 days away. 3 really, as they always did a celebration on Heiligabend, Holy Night. She couldn't think about that now. All was well, and all she wanted was sleep. So this was chapter 68, and I will continue with chapter 9 soon. Have a lovely Tuesday.